So put us in this moment. You're on your last mission. You're about to go home. You're in this very overexposed position.
Yeah.
14,000 foot peaks around you, and you hear the first shot. Where does it go from there?
Like I said, all hell broke loose. I mean, it was, with that many people surrounding you, it was just nonstop barrage of fire. There was like a little hedge of trees just to the north of us near a compound, and they had set up, a line of RPGs. And it was like, I call it the colonial firing line, where it was like these guys would step up and fire, they would step back, and the next line would step up and fire. So it was just RPG after RPG after RPG. And then they got really smart. They weren't just shooting them directly at our positions. They were shooting them at trees and structures above our positions to spray shrapnel down on us. So guys were just getting smoked left and right. And, here I am, like, everybody's just, the noise of battle, the confusion of battle, you're just like, what is going on? Like, where are we even getting shot from? We always joked. I mean, it was a joke, but it's not funny. It was like we were fighting ghosts. They actually had fighters. There was a big rock right in the middle of the OP, and these fighters found a way to get up on top of the rock and were just shooting our guys down, shooting straight down upon them. In all, like, we had 9 guys KIA that day, 27 wounded, which really left the 11 of us. Nobody walked out of there unscathed by any means, but the rest of us were just walking wounded, and we needed to be bodies in the fight. And, it was just, this was one of those moments where it's like, we all should have been killed. That should have been a complete wash. At one point, I had made my way up to the OP, and, we were pulling guys' bodies out, pulling parts out and stuff like that. And you're pretty numb. You're not really, like, paying attention to what's going on. But I remember pulling one guy out, and, like, his name was Sergeant Garcia. And Garcia had been hit by an RPG and had half of his back blown off completely. I mean, he was done, but, like, he had just a couple breaths left. And it's pretty surreal when you look down at a guy and he just looks up at you, and you just see that last breath go out of his body.
Jonny Benton, welcome to the Veterans Voice Podcast. How's it going today?
Good, Taylor. Thanks for having me on, man.
For sure, man. You have an awesome resource that I'm really excited to share with the veteran community, but you also have a pretty wild story, a lengthy story that we're also going to share with the audience. So let's just get started, get to know you a little bit, and tell us a little bit about Wild Warrior Adventures.
Yeah. Again, my name is Jonny Benton. I'm the executive director of Wild Warrior Adventure. I served just shy of 12 years in the U.S. Army as an airborne infantryman, and got out after that and started working in the nonprofit sector, and really loved working with veterans on this side as well as in the uniform. And because of that, I've gone on and become a John Maxwell certified coach and speaker, and I've been certified in multiple fly fishing guiding schools. Cool. Just to kind of hone the skill set, and just continue to hone those skill sets in different manners through different training and education, through professional routes to best serve our community.
Mm-hmm. And how would you kind of, your overarching definition of Wild Warrior Adventure? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Wild Warrior Adventure is a spiritually based outdoor adventure retreat that we take combat veterans, primarily male combat veterans, to premier locations throughout the U.S., mostly Wyoming, Montana, Utah, now down in Texas, and looking here in Colorado as well. And we do these 5-day retreats with about 10 warriors at a time. And, we get to go out fishing, but at the same time, we create intentional opportunities to build camaraderie and have conversations that we wouldn't normally have in our home environments.
Okay.
So.
Well, we won't get too deep into it yet, but
Yeah.
walk me through like what one of these 5-day retreats looks like.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. So we keep it simple for a reason, as we all know, like those combat guys.
Stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. Nothing against our own community, but you can kind of discover the fact that, like, we like simplicity. We don't want too much complication. And so that model has been presented very well through what Wild Warrior does. So, guys will show up. We'll do a quick introduction. Myself and my co-facilitator will share our stories so they know who they're going to be spending the week with. And then the next 4 days are pretty rinse and repeat, in that we'll wake up. Everybody will get an opportunity to share their story. We go fishing. We do this in premier locations on gold gold medal and blue ribbon waters. For example,
what does that mean? I've never heard of that.
So these are highly rated waters. So they test waters, and as long as there's a certain fish count per mile, they can get rated. And it depends on each state. So like, I think Colorado calls them blue ribbon, Wyoming calls them gold medal. So it varies state to state.
Like cream of the crop waters.
The best fishing spots. I mean, most of the places we've been have been on the top 100 list of fly fishing in the U.S. So we always look for the best spots. Not that we want to guarantee anything. We just want to be able to offer the best opportunity to catch fish.
For sure.
We always joke it's called fishing, not catching, right? So, but we want to increase that opportunity in this program. So we'll spend about 6 hours out on the water. Most of the locations we go, we do this in a drift boat. So we have guides that bring all the equipment. So folks just have to show up to the program with the clothes they're going to wear that week. Everything else is provided.
Oh, wow.
And then after fishing, we come back, there's a little rest, and then we go into an actual structured curriculum time. It is spiritual or faith-based curriculum. It's just the truth that we speak to folks from. Like I was telling you earlier, like we're not going to make anybody wear like white Velcro shoes and drink Kool-Aid at the end of the night. It's just the reality is like we have a foundation of truth that we work from, and it's worked for us. And we want to show that to the folks who come through the program and give them an opportunity to have discussions and just think differently about things. So that's 4 days in a row. We'll do that. And then we culminate the program with a nice dinner and kind of what we call our closing ceremony, and give the guys an opportunity to just encourage and affirm one another on the way out, to continue to just reinforce those bonds and create those relationships that can carry on past the program.
When were you guys founded?
So it was founded in 2017 in Ennis, Montana, at a lodge called Smiling Moose on the Madison River. And it was about 5 guys who were just sitting around a campfire. None of them had served in the military. They just had a passion for it. They all had family members who had served, and said, man, it would just be really great to be able to do this for combat veterans, guys who have served. And their thought process behind it was like, we want them to experience what they have fought for, these freedoms that we all get to exercise on a daily basis. We want them to experience that to the fullest extent. How else do you do that? Man, out in the nature, out in the land, out in the country that is just beautiful that we live in, and to experience it just from a different perspective in these isolated, beautiful environments that not a lot of people really get to go to. It's always kind of like the rich guy program, right? But we wanted to bring those barriers down and get those guys out there and get them to experience this full opportunity of just being out in the water, being taken care of. So like we have chefs on site that prep the meals. Like I said, guide services, equipment, all provided, bedding, soap, shampoo, it's all there. And they just show up with the clothes and a notebook, and they're good to go for the week. And the intentionality behind that is we want to eliminate distraction. Right. We want to have no worldly worries. We want them to just be there and be present and be completely involved without having to worry about, is somebody going to walk in or something going to happen? Is my phone going to blow up with a disparaging text? No, shut that stuff off. Let's just immerse ourselves in this beautiful environment, in this wonderful country that we got to serve and fight for. And now we just get to be in it and really, truly experience it at the next level.
Yeah, we live in a world of just constant and consistent stimulation, whether it's a cell phone or being out in public or having to go to the grocery store. So to be able to turn off for 4 or 5 days, like you're saying, man, the reset, that would be really refreshing. Yeah,
and along with the stimulation is the expectations, right?
Ooh,
we're constantly like stimulated and then trying to meet expectations. And it's like the only expectation we have is show up.
Yeah.
Just come show up, be a part of it. Just participate. Breathe.
Yeah.
Dude, so
Talk, tell stories.
100%.
Yeah. Cool, man. What's the most favorite location you guys have gone, would you say?
Oh, man. My personal favorite was Flaming Gorge, Utah, or Dutch John, Utah, in an area called Flaming Gorge. Logistically, it's really hard for us to do a trip there. The nearest airport's in Salt Lake City.
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah, it was 3.5 hours away to the nearest airport. So it was really tough for us to make that work. But we did a couple trips there, and you're going down the Green River in northeastern Utah in the Flaming Gorge, and it's the most beautiful river I think I've ever fished. Cool. And it's crystal, what they call gin clear. I mean, you can see 10 feet straight to the bottom. You see all the fish just swimming. I'm like, they call it the aquarium for a reason.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Sounds beautiful.
That was my favorite place.
Yeah, I've never been out there. Utah's on my like top 3 to hit this year for camping. We're big campers, so yeah. Well, you know, before we started recording, we talked about how the military oftentimes acts as a magnifying glass, exacerbating maybe childhood trauma or early life trauma. I think we both relate to that. So that being said, let's share your story. You said one of the first things you guys do on a Wild Warrior adventure is share your guys' story. So let's get to know Jonny a little bit.
Oh man, feet to the fire here. Awesome. No, it's
not a big fire. It's just a little candle.
It's a little candle. Yeah. So I love telling my story because I think it's more of a story of possibility than it is of, you know, trauma. So I just kind of want to preempt that and say, like, stuff happened to me throughout my life that not everybody experienced, but a lot of people have. And so this isn't a woe is me opportunity. This is an opportunity for me to say, like, look at what can be done. Look who we're capable of growing into.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, so like we were discussing before, like I was born and raised in the Army. So literally born in Army Tripler Hospital in Honolulu, Hawaii. And then for the rest of my formidable years, moving from military base to recruiting station to Germany overseas. My dad was stationed in there. He was a combat engineer for 20 years. And while we were stationed in Germany, this is kind of where my memory really kicks in, was that 7, 8, 9-year-old time frame. And being stationed in Germany, I mean, this is during the time the Berlin Wall came down. Right. So we were there. What a crazy time to be in Germany as a kid and to experience this like historical moment, you know, one of the biggest historical moments in our history at this time.
How old were you? 6, 7?
Probably like, I think I was 8 at the time. Yeah. So still pretty young, but still cognizant enough to kind of pay attention to what's going on. You know, you're starting to learn history in grade school. So watching all this happen and at the same time, you know, looking for guidance, like dad was in the military. I get it now. Like I don't fault my dad for this, but it was just like, where's dad? You know, he's either gone training, he's in Grafenwehr, or he's at school, or he's at sapper school or something, you know, who knows? And, you know, I really struggled with that as a kid, like looking for identity, looking for like, what does it mean to grow into a man? You know, I'm trying to figure out what this looks like. And I'm watching all these other kids. I'm like, where's their dads? You know, they're training with my dad somewhere, you know, they're all gone too. So, you know, that was a big struggle. And, man, I'm going to share this. I haven't really shared this like out in public before, but even during that time, you know, I experienced some sexual abuse even as a little kid. And I didn't know who to go to. You know, there's a big shame issue behind a lot of that. Like, oh my gosh, this is really embarrassing. I'm like 8 or 9 years old and I have no idea what just happened. Right. So I started carrying this burden, you know, just started putting bricks in the rucksack, even at that young of an age. And really kind of like made me question, like, what's my identity? What does this mean to be a guy or a dude or whatever it is at the time? Well, you know, I want to grow into a man, maybe. I don't know. Who knows what that's going to look like?
Yeah.
And, you know, I had been raised in a, you know, a God-fearing home. And so we always had that foundation of faith, something to revert back to, just a standard of truth that we like believed in. And so, I mean, I really hung on to that, and, you know, years progressed, other things happened, but there's still just that looming question of like, what the heck happened? Like, what was that all about? And, you know, still looking for that example and trying to figure out who I'm going to be when I grow up. And,
so that was always something that was kind of lingering into teenage years and early adulthood.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, what was that all about? You know, I didn't even know what was going on at the time. Like, I'm too young to really know what that was all about. And, you know, we didn't have phones and technology at the time. Like, it wasn't inundated at a young age. So it's a pretty new experience at that time as a kid. So, you know, raising up in the military, you know, still moving base to base. And we ended up here in Colorado Springs. So my freshman year of high school, we had moved to Colorado Springs. My dad was stationed at Fort Carson, and, you know, finished those 4 years. Those were pretty good years, you know, doing Boy Scouts, going camping and having fun out in the woods. Like, that was just that was my life. That was my place, man. I loved it out there. And I found peace and solitude, even at a young age, like out in the woods and climbing rocks and hiking trails and backpacking and camping and fishing. And
yeah, what a better place to do it too.
Oh man, it was awesome. It was such a great place to like spend the high school years and really just get involved into it. And, so after that, I thought maybe, you know, I really want to make a living out of this. I want to be a mountain guide. I want to make a career out of it. And so I started doing some internships and volunteering, and started going to, at the time it was Pikes Peak Community College. Now it's State College. And They had a outdoor survival and tourism program. So I jumped into that and realized that like the only way to be successful as a mountain guide is to live as a mountain hobo. It was really the only way you were going to afford.
How would you define that?
Yeah, just that was it. You lived in the mountains. Like you didn't make a lot of money doing it. So when you weren't out surviving, teaching people how to survive, you were just surviving.
Kind of like a ski bum. They just
Pretty
live,
much.
eat to ski.
It's same concept.
Okay.
Yeah. Live in your car, sleep in your car. Wasn't much difference. I was like, I don't know. It was like, maybe I'll just keep this as a hobby. And, so right before that, I'd moved to Oregon for a year and came back. That was a waste of time. Like just really ended up sitting around smoking a lot of pot and doing not much. And,
Oregon's good for that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful up there. Their forests are so much different than ours. A lot of moss, a lot of moisture, almost rainforesty.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they are rainforests and they're gorgeous, but that didn't work out. So came back, did this track and realized I wasn't going to do well in that. And I had always admired people in uniform growing up in it. And so I started going to police academy, signed up for that. And about 3/4 of the way through that, I walk into the schoolhouse and look up at the TV screen in the building and I watched 9/11 happen right in front of me. And walked into the classroom and I'll never forget what the instructor said that day. He said, "Go home, watch the news. That's your lesson for the day."
Whoa.
And like, he wasn't kidding. He goes, everything is about to change. No joke. He was 100% right. So I knew exactly what was going to happen coming from a military family. It was like, we're going to war.
Yeah.
No question. So finished up police academy, didn't even apply to a single department here in Colorado. I just went straight to the recruiter's office and said, I know we're going, sign me up. And so March of, 2002. So a few months after 9/11 had happened, March of 2002, I shipped off to boot camp in Fort Benning and had a Ranger contract. Thought I was going to be super hua and went through basic. I was one of those sick kids that like had fun in OSIT, the one station unit training. And like, I thought this was the coolest thing you could ever do. Like you're camping, you're shooting guns and you're getting to play out in the rain and in the mud. Like I was like, this is cool. And so finished well in basic and I really enjoyed it, and then was going to airborne school. And my third jump in airborne school, I broke both my feet and didn't know it.
Oh, no.
I had a pretty hard flat-footed landing and, just a rookie paratrooper trying to figure it out. Not to mention, 6'6" and about 245 pounds.
Coming
even at
down
that
hot.
time. Like, they called me the human lawn dart. Like,
Pushing the max load of that chute.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, and those were on the old Charlies, man. Like,
yeah,
those things were 40 years old at that point, right? Like, so
you're told to look up and look for helmet-sized holes, and you see like 8 of them. You're like, what the hell?
Like, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah,
but so broke both my feet. But I knew I'd done something, but I also knew that if you get recycled, like, that's not fun. So I'm like, I'm not doing this again. So I finished the last 2 jumps, last 2 5-mile runs on busted feet, and then went over to 75th. To go to the Ranger Training Battalion, and somebody saw me limping, and that was the end of that. Like, they're like, no way, dude, you can't come in. And so I was pretty heartbroken. I was really set on that. And a couple other things happened, and I worked kind of like one of those backdoor drug deals, and I ended up at the 3rd U.S. Infantry, the Old Guard in Fort Myer, Virginia. So we started doing toy soldier stuff, and that was my first duty station. It was not where I expected to go, so spent 4 years there. And in that time, I met my wife, Lindsay. She's from that area. We had our 3 daughters pretty quickly. Like, our first daughter was a honeymoon baby, and then we had twin daughters right after that. So
there you go. Congratulations.
We just pulled sling load on that one and like, done.
Yeah.
So right at that time, right after we had the twins, I re-enlisted. I wanted to get out of there because I had spent 4 years in Arlington Cemetery burying kids. Like 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old soldiers coming home, because that's what I signed up to do, was to go fight. I didn't come to bury people.
That's tough.
So it was kind of a mind job going through that and saying, like, this is not what I signed up to do. I didn't sign up to polish shoes and, micro measure awards onto my uniform. I want to get over there and do the thing.
Right.
And so re-enlisted. Actually, a bunch of us from the Old Guard re-enlisted to go over to Vicenza, Italy, to go to the 173rd. We knew they were getting ready to deploy, and we all wanted to deploy. So ended up moving over there and my wife and kids came soon after. I went there and got everything set up. They came after, and it was like 2 days after they got in country, we shipped out. We left country. So I kind of not abandoned her. I just didn't really have a choice. I talked to my command and said, let me get them settled. I'll meet you in Bagram. Like, we can ship out to the FOB from there. And they were like, nope, your men need you more. Mm-hmm. Well, I beg to differ. I think my family needs me more, but
right.
Roger that. I'm a good soldier. So Roger that. But, so that was a struggle. Like mine and my wife's stories obviously intersect, and like,
right.
That was a tough time. I mean, when you're leaving for that deployment, and the battalion commander gets up in front of you and says, men, it was nice knowing you. Not all of you are coming home. It's going to be one of those deployments where like, wow, way to set the tone. And, so we're in country, we go out to our FOBs within days of being there. It's our brigade command sergeant major was Command Sergeant Major Vamoto, and his son was one of the first ones to be killed in country. And so within a few days of us being there, our command sergeant major is taking his son home. And it's just like, what is going to happen? And then he comes back, and I remember he flew FOB to FOB, got off the bird, and what kind of language are we allowed to use?
Any. It's a veteran podcast. What the fuck do you think?
Yeah. So he gets off at every FOB. He gets out and gives us a short little briefing at the end of it. And he goes, you kill as many of those motherfuckers as you can. Like, there's the tone again. It just kept setting this tone. And so that was 2007, 2008. We spent 15 months there, and it became one of the most kinetic deployments in the war in Afghanistan. And we were in the Nuristan and Kunar provinces. We were right, our battle company was in Korangal Valley, aka the Valley of Death, and so we did a lot of support missions in Korangal Valley for them. We were on the backside, cutting off insurgents from coming in from a place called Camp Blessing. And so we were more of a QRF force. So anytime things hit the fan, we were there. It was just constant. The op tempo was intense for 15 months. And a lot happened during that. And then February of 2008, our platoon sergeant got killed by a friendly, so we had the Afghan security guard, the ASG guys. I was in charge of like paying and training. So I was a FU-Fun guy, paying and training these guys, giving them rifles, giving them ammo, giving them food, teaching them how to shoot. And then one of those dudes kills our platoon sergeant. And it's just like, that was Sergeant First Class Matthew Kaler. And that was a hit. That was daddy, platoon daddy. Like, we just lost him, and he'd taken such good care of us. And so it's a lot of guys snapped at that point. Like, we just said, this is it. We're done playing fair. Yeah. And obviously there's a lot of things I can't talk about that went on after that, but it was not pretty. It's, you mess with us, we're coming after you. And we displayed that. So
I want to sit in this for a moment. There's a lot of change happening here. You join wanting to be a ranger. That didn't work out. You end up, like you said, aligning metals and polishing shoes, not the job you wanted. You get stationed in Italy, and now your family gets out there, and you're immediately in one of the most brutal deployments in Afghan history.
Yeah.
How did you feel throughout this time? What were some of your emotional swings up and down?
Man, I would love to say there was an emotional swing, but I think I flipped that switch off, and that's a starting point of a whole nother story.
Yeah.
You flip that switch off because it's like, I could be emotional. I could let this get to me, or we need to get back to work. Mm-hmm. We haven't left. We're still here. Our friends just left in body bags, and it had been happening throughout the deployment, watching these guys go. And it's like, we can't continue to let this happen. So it's just press in, suppress, press in, suppress, press in, keep going. And,
right.
There were moments, one of my best buds, like, we followed each other from the old guard, and he was in battle company. I was in chosen company. And, it was those few moments where you were around the person that you could trust with that emotional switch. And, Ortegren was that guy for me, where like when he would come, when we were able to connect in country, it was like we would just go find a burn pit and flip the switch off and just cry, just let it out. Because I mean, it was just like taking an emotional dump. You just got to let it out, man. Like, and then flip the switch and get back to work. And so there were just those like occasional moments where it was like you could turn it off. And like, you know, even having my own like spiritual background and faith, taking it into this, like I think that was a huge like cushion for me, just something to fall back on. I always knew I had a foundation of truth that I could always go back to. And I just, you know, I watched some of the guys, they were completely rejective of it, and that's fine. That's their choice. But it was like, they just seemed kind of more like, I don't know what's going on. What the fuck, you know, like, I don't know what to do. And, but, you know, knowing what was going on with my wife, like our communication was so shoddy. I mean, it could be months at a time before I even talked to her. And they're getting red letter notices, right? Like they're getting alerts like, hey, communication's been shut down. We lost another one. And this was almost daily. Like while we're deployed, we lost so many guys. It was just constant. So my wife's sitting there and just this ball of emotion, like, is this one mine? Is this one mine? Is this one mine? You wait for that 24, 48, 72 hours. Nobody knocks on the door. Okay. And then finally, you know, we go back off of black communication. We can actually call and be like, hey, babe, I got 5 minutes. I'm okay. We did lose some guys, but I'm okay.
Wow.
You know, and it's just for her, she was just getting destroyed. She was wrecked emotionally. She's just like, I can't do this. She ended up having to leave Italy and go back to stateside to stay with her family. She was like, I need support.
This is a 15-month
deployment.
Jeez, man.
Yeah. So gone a long time. I was able to come back, you know, mid-tour leave and take a little R&R, but you know, that's, you kind of see your wife and kids and kiss them and love them, and then you're gone again. And it's like,
can I ask you about that R&R real quick? I never got to experience one of these 15-month deployments, but how is that 2 weeks being home in the midst of all of that?
Man, it was great. So it was in December. I got to go back in December.
Okay.
So it was great. So like right before Christmas, I got to go back, and that was a blessing. But it was like, as we were flying out, you know, I'm just like, I'm on the bird. I'm like praying. I was like, oh Lord, just let me get home and see my wife and kids one more time. That was really the thought process of going back, even for that 2 weeks, is this is the last time. Because with what we've been going through, like there's no guarantee anymore. And we're flying out in the Chinook, and like we take fire, and I'm like, there's bullets hitting the skin of the bird right behind me, and I'm like, is this how we're gonna go? Like I don't even get a chance to shoot back. Like we're just gonna fall out of the air. Like, you know, that was trippy, you know. And but to spend that 2 weeks, I mean, I barely remember it at this point.
I'm sure,
like, I was just so glazed over and just in mission mindset. Like to even spend those 2 weeks with them, it flew by. I barely remember. Like I have to look at pictures to even remember what we did. And that we went to my wife's uncle's wedding during that time. And I remember like glimpses of it. It's just crazy because you're just so out of your head even at that point. And then you go back. It's just like back to work.
USAA is celebrating over 100 years of service to our military community. In 1922, it was a group of soldiers that started USAA to insure each other's vehicles when no one else would. Since then, USAA has grown to over 13 million members strong, and through it all, one thing has remained. USAA is still serving the military community and their families. With their launch of Face the Fight Coalition to counter veteran suicide, we are proud to have USAA as a sponsor of the Veterans Voice podcast.
So we finished that deployment out in a really fun way. 2 weeks before we were going to rip out, we got told, you've got one last mission. We want you to go to this village, Wanat, which is like 14 clicks away, and we want you to build a forward operating base.
You say Wanat?
Wanat, yep, W-A-N-A-T.
Where is that? I've heard that before.
It's in the Nuristan province in the Waigal River Valley. So it's pretty close to the Pakistan border, yeah. So we're like, no, we're not doing it. I mean, there was like a full what do you call it? What do pirates call it? A mutiny, right? Like so there was like a full mutiny. We're like, we're not going. This is a death mission. Like, don't do this to us. And, you know, there was a lot of discussions between command and the squad leaders and the leadership. And finally they just came down and said, you're doing this.
Man.
And we had been to Wanat multiple times. I mean, we couldn't really drive anywhere. The roads were all so jacked up. The majority of the time we were on foot patrols, walking 14 clicks. And
also a bunch of bombs probably buried in them.
Yeah, there were a few of those.
Yeah.
But So they were like, you're going to load up Humvees, you're going to drive this treacherous road all the way out to Wanat, and you're going to build this. And they had set up a pretty good plan for us to build the fob up and have, HESCO walls, and they were going to drop in these like fortified fighting positions. Like, sitting here going like, wow, this is like some Star Wars-y stuff. Like, I've never even realized normally you just make us stack sandbags and, we just dig in.
Mm-hmm.
And, so they had this pretty elaborate plan that they were going to build the fob for us, and we get there, and within 48 hours, like every one of those resources and pulled. Like, we were supposed to have Spectre gunship on rotation, and A-10s and F-16s and Apaches, and all these different assets rotating, and a lot of those assets got pulled within those first 24 to 48 hours, and we're just kind of sitting there going like, okay, what's coming? Because it's just a matter of time now, because a lot of that stuff is good show of force, and it just keeps the bad guys at bay, right? And they weren't seeing it. So the fourth day we were there, we were pretty close to out of water, out of food at this point. We had just kind of completely gone black on everything. We were just not sure what we were going to be doing. So even after that first 48 hours, like, we're not getting assets. So we just pulled out pickaxes and shovels and just started digging. And man, talk about euphoric, like digging your own grave.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
it really was like I think that was a thought going through everybody's head. We're just, chipping up this dirt, and it's not even dirt. It's just like soft rock.
Right.
So you're not making much progress, and you're just piling it up because we ran out of sandbags. They dropped off HESCOs, medium HESCOs, with a Bobcat with a half tank of gas. So we filled about 3.5, 4 HESCOs.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just to like cover some like really exposed positions. That was it. So that was the best support we got while we were there. And then, so just digging in, just dig. We told everybody dig. And, so the fourth day we were there, that morning we were supposed to wake up. Lieutenant Brostrom was our platoon leader. And Lieutenant Brostrom and my squad were supposed to go on a patrol to go look for a new observation post where we were going to put our little Afghan army guys. There was about 7 or 8 of them. We were going to post them up there and overwatch us. And so we're sitting there at stand 2. It's like 4 a.m, pitch black. And, you start to get that little bit of glaze of light that just messes everybody up. And that's when you heard, that first snap. There's just one shot fired, and we're like, here it comes. And then, all like, for lack of a better term, all hell broke loose.
Yeah. Hey, paint a picture real quick, because I'm just imagining you guys are in this valley kind of creating this little makeshift fob, if you will. Not even that, just this little fighting position. What's around you? Where are you expecting fire to come from? Where is, action likely to come from?
So it was a really interesting position. It was a thumb. It was exposed, so it's kind of sticking out. You've got the river like 200 feet below you in this canyon, and we're kind of up against this wall. And then there's a road that would be on the east side of us that goes right into the town. So there's a little bazaar, like little garage door bazaars right behind us. Couple 2-story buildings. There's a mosque. On the other side of us was like a hospital, and so just a few little scattered buildings, and then, 14,000 foot Hindu Kush peaks all around us. I mean, we're just completely engulfed by a steep mountainside, and we're just sitting down on this little thumb that's kind of sticking out over the river. Mm-hmm. You couldn't have put a bunch of soldiers in a more exposed location. Not to call anybody out, but to call anybody out. You know what I'm saying?
For sure, yeah.
It was
totally get it.
It was insanely exposed. So like we had a brick wall or like a stacked rock wall that ran the length of the road. So we had some protection there. There's like a little old farming building off to the side where our commander, or like our lieutenant and platoon sergeant, were at, and we had built a little makeshift ammo supply point for our mortar team, and they had a tow truck with us, or tow missile truck with us. So, we had a couple of internal assets, Mark 19s and 50 cals on the Humvees, but that was really about it. Everything was exposed. So like my position was right up against the road, kind of on the south side of the fob, up against the eastern road there. And like, so on one side I had this rock wall. On the other side we had the Humvee as protection. And then it was just sandbags and dirt piled up on either side of that, with a small entryway at the hood of the Humvee.
Just raw.
That was it. Yeah. It was raw. I was like just making a little death nest.
Yeah. And the whole point was to what? Just sit there and wait to be shot at, more or less.
Hindsight, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we were there. I don't know if they're really, I'm sure there was a plan to build the FOB, but was there? I don't know.
It's funny to think about this stuff later in life,
Yeah.
Why were we there doing that mission?
Yeah. And we knew, we had been the ones out gathering the intel. We knew that right up this valley that went to the east towards Pakistan, there was a little 3-village conglomerate that we called, it was Taliban R&R. That's where they went to relax and refit, gets resupplied from Pakistan. So we knew they were up there. And so this was a coordinated attack because what we found out was that they had been going to Wanat for the last year during this 15-month deployment, saying, we're putting a base right here. So they had 12 months to prep. So some high-level Taliban generals had spent that time researching the site. Initially, they were going to do this attack on an area called Bella, which was further up the valley, but we shut Bella down to move all the resources to Wanat. And so they had planned this attack there, but I think we gave them an even greater advantage when we moved to Wanat because we had less protection. We were more exposed. And so they estimate between 200 to 300 fighters. There were 49 U.S. personnel on the ground and about 7 or 8 Afghan folks. They were pretty worthless. As soon as shots went off, they all just laid down, and we didn't see them after that. I don't even know what happened to them.
So put us in this moment. You're on your last mission. You're about to go home. You're in this very overexposed position. 14,000-foot peaks around you, and you hear the first shot. Where does it go from there?
Like I said, all hell broke loose. It was, with that many people surrounding you, it was just nonstop barrage of fire. There was a little hedge of trees just to the north of us near a compound, and they had set up, a line of RPGs. And it was I call it the colonial firing line, where it was these guys would step up and fire, they would step back, and the next line would step up and fire. So it was just RPG after RPG after RPG. And then they got really smart. They weren't just shooting them directly at our positions. They were shooting them at trees and structures above our positions to spray shrapnel down on us. So guys were just getting smoked left and right. And, here I am, everybody's just, the noise of battle, the confusion of battle. You're just what is going on? Where are we even getting shot from? It's you couldn't even tell. We always joked. It was a joke, but it's not funny. It was we were fighting ghosts. These people are so adept and so used to their own terrain and their own land. They knew just how to use it to their advantage. And so it was just constant. And then we had OP. We named it after our platoon sergeant who had been killed earlier that year. So we had OP Kaler, which is just on the other side of the bazaar. So we had our FO and some other guys, a heavy guns team up there. And they got completely overwhelmed. They actually had fighters. There was a big rock right in the middle of the OP, and these fighters found a way to get up on top of the rock and were just shooting our guys down, shooting straight down upon them. And that's where most of our guys were killed. So, in all, we had 9 guys KIA that day, 27 wounded, which really left the 11 of us. Nobody walked out of there unscathed by any means, but the rest of us were just walking wounded, and we needed to be bodies in the fight. And, it was just, this was one of those moments where it's we all should have been killed. That should have been a complete wash on our forces. And to walk away from that and be what happened? Yes, QRF showed up. Yes, air assets finally arrived. It's just, I always love a good funny story about a fight, right? So at one point I had made my way up to the OP, and, we were pulling guys' bodies out, pulling parts out and stuff like that. And you're pretty numb. You're not really paying attention to what's going on. But I remember pulling one guy out, and his name was Sergeant Garcia, and Garcia had been hit by an RPG and had half of his back blown off completely. He was done, but he had just a couple breaths left. And it's pretty surreal when you look down at a guy and he just looks up at you and you just see that last breath go out of his body. You're just whoa, what did I just experience there, man? I literally just watched life leave a body. And so you're collecting all these memories in this moment. But then we pushed to the front of that OP, and we're sitting in this fighting position. We're sitting down in mud, which was not really mud. It was a mixture of blood and dirt. And we're sitting down in this. And if you're going to be in a fighting hole with anybody, be in a fighting hole with a guy named Sergeant Grimm.
I like it.
It was such a good name. But yeah, Grimm and I were just there, and it was just, I don't know how long we were there, and I don't know how many. We just threw hand grenades down into the draw, just hand grenade after hand grenade after hand grenade. And you're just sitting there again. You're just going, what is going on? And at one point, Grimm was like, man, I could really use a smoke. I was like, dude, me too. And he like looks around, and there's this pack of Marlboros sitting up on this ledge, and he grabs it. He's like, no way. Grabs it, he pops it open. There's 2 cigarettes in there.
No way.
I was like, you got a lighter? He goes, yeah, I got a lighter. So like, and we were just taking a barrage of fire. So we were completely hunkered down at this point. We couldn't even pop our heads up because we were just getting snapped so much. And so, we just sat down, hunkered down. We like both smoked a cigarette, and then finally there was that lull in fire, and we kind of, side peek over the top and, see if we can take some shots back at this little compound that was across the draw from us that we were getting shot at from. And so then all of a sudden the A-10s come in, and they're doing gun runs right on the front of this position, and you're feeling the concussion of that 40 millimeter. You're just like, holy, it just takes your breath right out of you that close. Like, man, if they were any closer, it'd be ripping the skin off our bodies.
Yeah.
Like, it's just insane just how powerful those weapons are. But
Probably felt safe in a way, though.
Oh, dude, it was the most comforting.
Yeah.
So even that night after the fight was done, they didn't pull us out of there. They kept us there. And so I was like, they finally told us, hey, go hunker down, get some rest. So I go back to my original fighting position, my squad fighting position. I remember laying there.
Go get some rest.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll go get my 8 hours of sleep.
But this was the most comforting sound I think I've ever heard, was Spectre gunship firing into the hillsides. That thump,
the
thump,
105.
Thump, and you hear the wow, yeah, that drone.
Yep.
Like, I actually dozed for a minute just listening to that, because I was like, man, there's a reason that these people call it the finger of God. Like, it's a powerful weapon system, and it's here for us right now. And I actually kind of feel safe at the moment. This thing it's got eyes on us right now. So I knew I could like shut down for a second and rest in that moment. But yeah, those sounds, I mean, they bring so much comfort. Like, gosh, 2 days ago, there were Blackhawks flying through the sky, and it was nighttime, and you could just see the taillights. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, those are Blackhawks.
Yeah.
She was like, how do you know? I was
You
like,
just know.
because that sound has gotten me out of sticky situations multiple times in the past. And she was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Dude, for me, it's a Chinook, man. When I hear a Chinook, the amount of times that's pulled me and traveled places in it, holy cow. Man, Chinooks are it too. But
they're pretty cool weapon systems. Yeah, they're just... Well, what's really surreal is like being dropped off the back of a Chinook onto like a 40-degree slope, and they're like, we can't even touch down. So see that 6-foot drop? That's your responsibility. just jump.
Yeah,
like,
and we can't hold this for very long, so hurry up.
Yeah, we're already 4,000 feet over our max ceiling. So,
So how did this come to a close? You kind of mentioned you were just hunkered down there, but at what point did you leave?
Yeah, so we were there for 2 more days. The few of us that were left, and there was they brought in special forces, our Green Beret buddies, and they brought in 100 Afghan commandos. So they swept the hillsides, and they were popping, little squirters that had remained, and took care of that. So we were just there kind of collecting everything up and packing the Humvees back up. They just said, nope, failed plan, pack it up. Let's head back to Blessing. And so we went back there. So like I said, we were there for 2 more days, drove back. My Humvee, like I had a Mark 19 on mine, a bullet had gone through the T&E system on it. So like it won't even move. So it was like kind of a useless weapon system. And it had a flat tire. So we had to limp that stupid thing 14 clicks back to Blessing. And the whole time you're just like, we're going to get hit again. We just like, that's our luck. Like this is
can't
it.
even shoot back.
We're 2 days away from going home. And like, we don't even have an effective weapon system here. And it's like, and we're just smoked. So grace of God, we get back to Blessing, and we do our fallen soldier ceremony. It was a big one, like 9, like, dude, that's 9 helmets and rifles and boots and on dog tags. Like, it's heart wrenching. Like, and some of those kids were 20 years old, man. They were babies. That was it, and did they go down in a blaze of glory? Yeah, man, they were freaking heroes. But it wasn't it wasn't worth anything to like go do that, lose that many people, have that many people injured. And then for what? We packed it up and went home. And then a couple of days after that, we're on birds. We're back in Bagram. And I want to share this part because I think some people will really resonate with this, was that even in Bagram, they had isolated us. They knew what we had been through. Nobody knew what to do with us. They were like, these guys are out of their freaking minds. And we were ticking time bombs, honestly. Like, it was just a matter of time before we all just snapped, because that was so violent and so inexplicable.
Mm-hmm.
And there was really no reason behind it. So we're all sitting there going, what just happened? So they speed us through the whole, health and wellness checks to get us back on the bird to send us home. And I remember, this is the last thing I remember, is they hand us this baggie of little yellow pills. And they say, take one of these every 8 hours until you get back in country, back in Italy. I don't remember anything after that. I still don't know what these little yellow pills were. Really? I don't know if they were an antidepressant or like a sleep aid or something. I have no idea.
Interesting. If anybody knows, please fill us in the comments, because that's kind of scary.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I'm just like, what did they do to us? Because I don't remember much of any. I remember we stopped in Georgia, the country, Georgia, and we were there for a little bit of time sleeping in bunks. I think I bought my wife some like fur hat or like a kimono or something, and then we left again. Right after we left is when Russia invaded Georgia, hours after we flew out. So It was like, we were just, again,
jeez, man, like,
you're sitting there going, what? No way that was just about to happen. And we left hours before it kicked off. So flew out, went back to Italy. And like, really the next memory after that was stepping off the bus onto the parade field in Caserta, Italy, in Vicenza, Italy. And going like, who am I supposed to, I remember kind of like, I don't know if I remember what my wife looks like. It was just, I was dazed. Of course I knew what she looked like. I was just kind of dazed at the moment. And, I see her and it's like all of a sudden reality snapped in. But at that same moment that reality snapped in, that side of me, that protective side said, stuff it. Don't bring this home. And so I put the smile on. I walked up to her, hugged her, kissed her, and we moved on with life after that. And then, so we did our 30 days of leave, and then came back and got right back into training, and just crazy stuff started happening. Like, we're out on a range in Germany or northern Italy, makeshift range, and we're training, and all of a sudden I'm like crying, like, what is going on? And this young lieutenant who had taken over, Lieutenant Brostrom, was killed in the Battle of Wanat, and so we lost. He was a very close friend of mine, and so we lost him. So this young lieutenant, they literally sent him to Wanat to replace our lieutenant who had just been killed. This poor guy just got thrown into the absolute fire at that point. And I remember grabbing him and like crying on his shoulder. And he's like this young, 20-something kid out of college, and just like, why is this big giant dude like crying on me? And like, I couldn't even explain it. I didn't know what was going on. Now we know, like, that's like PTSD coming to surface, that post-traumatic stress, and that trauma, just, it's boiling over. I have no idea though. Like, it wasn't a conversation in 2007 and 2008. It was just beginning to be a conversation, I should say, really. And so eventually, some other things happened, and they said, we need to send you somewhere else. Like, you need to reconnect with you and your family and like figure some stuff out. So they said, we're going to give you a nice cushy job in TRADOC. You're going to go to Warrior Leader Course, or some know it as PLDC. So they sent me to be an instructor at Warrior Leader Course up in Grafenwehr, Germany. And they're like, oh man, you're going to have a predictable schedule. It's a 9 to 5. Like, you're going to get time with your family. No, man, this is a 4 a.m. to like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. job. And it was pretty high stress. Like, you're working with these young leaders. And after that, like, I had this like mental drive. Like, I was not going to let a leader fail another soldier. And like, I just put the pressure on, and at the same time I was losing my mind. Like, while we were in Germany 3 years, like, I tried to commit suicide twice. I was drinking half a handle of Jameson whiskey every night just to go to sleep. It was like, one of the times I tried to take a bunch of pills and chase it with whiskey, thinking I just wouldn't wake up. And I woke up the next day and had to go to work. Man. Or it's like other times I tried, like my wife walked into me, just things happen. Like, it never was successful. So now I'm just feeling like a failure. I can't even, like, I can't save my friends. I can't even take my own life. I can't do all this stuff. So I'm just feeling like I'm failing. I mean, it was just, which is.
Do you mind if I ask you about that real quick? 'Cause
Yeah.
suicidal ideation attempts and even successfully committing suicide as a veteran is a very popular thing, and it's something we're all trying to get to the bottom of,
Right.
Because it's unnecessary. You're not alone. This is not the way out.
No.
What do you think drove you to having those thoughts, the ideation of suicide?
I think the biggest thing was I didn't take the time to really process what had happened. So that's why I intentionally said I stuffed it. As soon as we stepped off that bus onto the parade field, I stuffed it. I can't talk about this. I can't have these conversations. I don't want to scare my wife. I don't want to scare my kids. But you know what, man? Like, my wife, what a champion. Like, Lindsay was there the whole time, and all she wanted me to do was be honest with her. Tell her this. And the people in my chain of command at the time, they were asking for the same thing. But what we fail to do is give other people the benefit of the doubt and say that, like, oh, I'm just going to be a burden on them. I don't want to tell them I have these thoughts and these emotions going on. No, forget that. We are compassionate people at the core. Like, we really do care about each other as human beings, let alone people who have a shared experience like military service. Mm-hmm. We do give a damn. Like, talk to somebody, tell them, and don't expect an answer. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I think sometimes we want to tell people something and then expect them to give us the answer. Mm-hmm. The answer was in you telling them. You just got to talk about it, get it out. Because if you stuff it, that's where it becomes the pressure cooker, man. That's where it's like your top is going to pop eventually, and it's not going to pop in a healthy manner. It is going to pop in suicidal ideations, in thoughts, ideas, and actions, right? And that is not the right way to do things. Like, I don't know why we've been conditioned to think we need to do this on a solo track.
Right.
Because I don't think you were ever taught that in the military. I sure wasn't taught that. I was taught to look out for your buddy to your left and your right, protect each other. Like, we were taught to do this in a team. Mm-hmm. Where did that go away? When did that go away? It never did. Yeah. Somehow we just self-conditioned to think that, like, well, I don't want to put a burden on anybody else. Yeah. No, you're more of a burden when you begin to stuff this stuff and carry it. And now people are like, what the heck is going on with this dude? Like, even my command at the time, at the Warrior Leader course, all NCOs. So, like, part of the Corps, man, like, we take care of each other. They're looking at me going, man, what is wrong with Benton, man? Like, what's wrong with Sergeant Benton? Like, he won't talk to us. He won't tell us anything, but he punches walls and he throws, filing cabinets, and he yells at the students. Like, something's not right. And I finally had, a senior leader come up to me and was just like, dude, you got one of two options. Best thing anybody's ever said to me. You've got one of two options. He goes, you're going to go talk to a doctor, or we're going to discharge you and you're going to lose everything. Those are really your options. And I'm like, what happened? How did I get to this point? I've been a good soldier up to this point. I've had a pretty stellar track record. I've done really well. And so I said, I appreciate that. So I'm like, I'll go talk to a doctor. Clearly something is wrong. I see it with my family. And it was just, there were, right around this same time, right around the same time, my wife got pregnant, and we lost the baby. She had a miscarriage, and she was like going into her second trimester, and like, I hope she's okay with me sharing this, but and I almost lost her. Like, she had to be taken to the ER in a German hospital, and like, I'm not allowed to go with her. I've got 3 little kids at home, 3 little girls. And I just remember sitting on the bottom of the stairs holding these 3 little girls going, what did I do? Like, I really took this whole burden on myself. I said, this is my fault. This is from the stress I've put on my family. This is the resulting impact of what I'm doing internally coming out and exposing itself externally. Now, looking back, I know there's not much I could have done or did to really create that situation, but I just bore that burden.
You didn't know what to do.
I didn't know what to do, yeah. And so I just like went into self-blame mode. So it was just, because that's what I'd gotten used to. Like, It's my fault. I should have done this differently. I should have done that differently. All these what if scenarios that really spin us into this yucky cycle. And really struggled with that. So like all these things were happening. And so I'm like, I do have to go to a doctor. And this was where it kind of really like hit me again. So after a couple of appointments with this doctor, I show up and he slides paperwork across the table and says, you're done. He goes, mentally and physically, you're too far gone. You're not combat effective anymore. Like, that was a straight gut shot, because it was like, wait, you're telling me my identity is no longer my identity? I can't do this anymore? Like, I love this. Like, no, you're done. I already signed the paperwork. The ball is rolling. It's in motion. And so, like, now I have to go home and tell my wife, like, my career's over. My career's over. My fault again, right? And so it was just like devastating blow after devastating blow. And it wasn't, again, like, sure, like combat. Like, I signed up for that. I probably could have processed that a little better if I had taken the time to realize that, no, this is what I signed up to do. Was it the best of circumstances? No. Was it based off of the best intel or the best leadership? No, maybe not. But was it what I signed up to do? Yes. But what I didn't sign up for was dealing with this stuff, the struggles that came afterwards, the devastating news of being told you're done, get out, and they send us back stateside. When you're overseas, you only get 3 options to go back stateside, and that stateside, that's Walter Reed, BAMC, Brooks Army Medical Center, or Washington, Lewis McChord.
Right.
So those are the only 3 options you get coming from Oconus back to Conus. And I was like, well, I don't want any of those. Like, I don't want to go back to DC. Like, I started out there. I don't want to end there. And, like, not a fan of Texas, and definitely not a fan of Washington. Like, I want to go back to Colorado. And so just another one of those, like, shining moments, one of those, like, moments that I just consider a miracle was, like, I came back to the next appointment. He goes, well, bad news. All 3 of those locations are full at the Warrior Transition Battalion. So you get to pick where you go. I was like, is there room at Fort Carson? They're like, yeah, actually there is. And
nice.
So we got to come home, man. Like, and those were those moments where I really got to focus on and hang on to, because there were just these, like, little glimmers of hope. Powerful word there, hope, right? Like, little glimmers of hope that just kept kind of flashing through, that just kept me going. The next step, right? It wasn't a leap and it wasn't a marathon. It was a step. And that's what I needed. So that took us right back to Colorado. And spent about a year at the WTU, Warrior Transition Unit here at Fort Carson. And at the end of that, in October of 2013, somebody slid paperwork across the table and said, there's your DD-214. There's the front gate. You're like, that's it? Like, it's done? No fanfare, no parade, no nothing? No, thank you for your service. The gate's that way.
How'd that sit with you?
Dude, it was terrible. It's terrible. It made me feel like I spent the last 12 years for no reason. And, like, what did they do? They, like, had some random ceremony a week prior to that out in front of the Warrior Transition Battalion, and they pinned an ARCOM on all our chests. And I'm like,
thanks, buddy.
ARCOM, yeah, great for all that. Like, yeah. Dude, what are you guys doing to us? And then, that was the send off. No flag, no nothing, no like I said, no fanfare. It was just, okay, you're done. Okay. And mind you, I think the military's come a long way. There's a lot of great programs now that help guys transition. But my transition at the time was an 8-hour class where they taught us how to log on to usajobs.com and how to fill out our resume. What kind of transition is that? I spent, 3 months at Fort Benning getting reconditioned and reprogrammed to do my job. And I get 8 hours on how to write a resume, and that's how they unprogram my programming.
Right. Yeah, right. I like that verbiage you're using, because that's really what happens. We get programmed to do a very dirty job. In your case, infantry, airborne infantry, with all those deployments. That's what you were programmed to do. Yeah. And now you're getting out of the military, and you get an 8-hour class that you're probably falling asleep in on how to write your resume and how to make WLC sound like some kind of leadership endeavor. Yeah. Led true. Yeah, it's a joke, but yeah. So what was like your first job, your first pursuit right out of the military?
So a little story behind this. So while I was in the WTU, I got in trouble.
Uh-oh.
Like, I'd shoot out my squad leader. Like, I didn't feel like I was being led well, and I stood up and made that very vocal in the command post in the company headquarters. And
good for you, though.
I look back, there was a lot of shame and regret afterwards, but now I look back and I'm like, I was justified in this. This was my healing track. this was my opportunity to get a send off out of the military after all this time I had served. And, I didn't need anybody getting in the way of that. And, no, I didn't want to sound selfish in that aspect, but the reality is like, I'm trying to make something for myself and for my family. And somebody got in the way of that, and they met the side of me I don't like so much. And, I got pulled into the First Sergeant Commander's office and got my heels locked up and was told, you got one of two options.
There it is.
I keep getting this offer, know, and so they said one option is, we kick you out right now. You lose all your benefits. All this hard work you've done to build up this like benefit packet. It's done. Or you go home, you pack your bags, you're back here in the next 3 hours, and you get on a van and you go to a ranch in West Cliff, Colorado. Like, all right, I'll take option B,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yes. First Sergeant. So come back, get on a bus and head out to West Cliff, Colorado, to a place called Eagle Summit Ranch. And there was an organization there called the Reaver Foundation, founded by a guy named Dave Reaver, who's a Vietnam vet. He was what they call him, brown water guy. So he drove the boats for Navy SEALs, and
holy cow,
so he was running Navy SEALs around Vietnam, and he was going to throw an incendiary grenade, and a sniper shot the incendiary grenade out of his hand and burned over, I think it was like over 52% of his body, melted his face off. So the dude is a beautiful human being. I mean, he is hard to look at it, and he knows it, but he just has the biggest heart. And so he greeted us out there and took us through a week of just, kind of pouring into us and loving on us. And I'm like, I'm looking at this dude who should be a total disaster, just mentally and physically. He should just be completely jacked. And, he had turned his physical scars into a conversation starter because he just had this beautiful heart. And I'm like, wait, so you're telling me, like, after everything I've been through, not even nearly as severe as what he's been through physically, but he's turning it into something good. Like, it started my wheels rolling. Like, well, what's next? How do I do this? Like, I loved leading soldiers. I love teaching. I love training and instructing. And so I had met another group of guys through that, and they kind of invited me into another nonprofit. So as soon as I stepped out of the Army, these guys called me up and said, why don't you move to California? Come work with us. We're going to serve veterans. It was a ministry working with veterans, and a much bigger ministry, or much bigger program now, but kind of they had just started. So I went out there, and that was my first job outside the Army, was working in nonprofits, but still working within the community and working with other guys, telling my story. And but that was at the beginning of my healing journey. So like, I made some mistakes. I struggled during that time. And after 3 years of being in California, I stood in front of my wife again with a pistol in my mouth and just said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. And she just, with tears in her eyes, she just reached up, such grace in her heart, and just said, stop. And I knew that was the word I needed to hear. Stop. Just stop. So like, we made that choice. We said, let's stop. Let's pedal back for a couple of years. Let's move back to Colorado. We owned our house here. So we moved back into our house. We just took that break for 2 years to kind of figure some things out. And in that 2 years, as I'm going to my therapies, I'm going to the doc, going to the VA, doing everything I can, because I knew I needed to be healthy. I knew I wanted to help other people, but I couldn't do it until I first helped myself. There had to be some of that in there, right? Is there a lot of healing and helping other people? Yes, but do not neglect yourself. You have to give yourself some attention, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We need to go down this journey. That way we can be better for others. And so I discovered that. I learned that. And in that process, in 2018, right after we'd moved back, that's when I discovered Wild Warrior Adventure.
And here we are, back at Wild Warrior Adventure.
Yeah, full circle, man.
Thanks for sharing your story, brother. I need to like digest that for a second, because that was an emotional ride. You're a true inspiration. I'm glad you're still here, man.
Likewise.
For sure. I know you lost a lot of friends in the process, but holy cow.
Yeah. Still losing friends, man.
Still losing friends, because we don't know what to do with this after the fact. You know what I mean? We get an 8-hour class on how to write a resume. How about all my buddies that I lost in missions that I don't even agree with? Yeah. Like, how do I sit with that? I don't care what job I have. I can't sleep at night.
Yeah.
It's tough, dude. I get it. Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center and the Veterans Voice podcast are partnered with Colorado Computer Support IT Pros to handle all of our computing and technology needs. They are veteran-owned, and they're your team for innovative, collaborative IT services and solutions to enhance and support your Colorado business. Here on the show, we talk a lot about business and entrepreneurship. As businesses grow, it's inevitable that you need to outsource IT services. When that time comes for your business, consider Colorado Computer Support IT Pros. So tell me about Wild Warrior Adventure today.
Man, it has gone through its own growth process, to say the least, from where I first saw it, which was the second trip they had ever facilitated, till now, where we're pushing over 30 plus trips that we've executed over the last, what is that, 7 years now. So it's just been an incredible journey to watch it grow and just continue to develop. But I mean, that's it. I get to do this every time I go. Is it hard to tell the story, your story, my story? Yeah, it's hard. Does it ever get easier? Sometimes, maybe not. But if I can see the impact it has in another person's life, to sit across the table from them and say, this is me, raw, unfiltered, you're about to see all my yuck. Or as one of my buddies, Travis, says, I'm going to expose the kimono to you. I'm going to open it up and you're going to get to see all of this. And, it's so it's really just evolved. Even from when I first went, there was alcohol at the program. We've gone dry. When I took over, I'm like, look, we're getting all the distractions out of here.
I love that, man. I'm not an advocate of alcohol at all, especially in the military community. I think it's fuel on the fire for sure.
It is for a lot of us,
even in small amounts, man.
Yeah, and a lot of our community, like it's a crutch, man, and it's not helping. It's masking, and so that's really like what we want to do. We want to create that environment where people cannot be intoxicated or under the influence, where they can just step back and show up in these natural environments, breathe some fresh air. What was crazy for me is even the first time I went, I stepped out the front and I'm like, this looks like the hills of Afghanistan. Like, I'm a little uncomfortable here. Or even driving through Highway 24 up into Woodland Park, like this stuff.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I get weird sometimes out there.
Yeah. And I'm just, but then, you're not under any influence. You're not being surrounded by distractions. So you can just stop and think and be like, but nobody's out there. Nobody's out there. Wait a second. Nobody's out there. Nobody's going to shoot at me. I mean, maybe some wild redneck having a crazy day and a couple of beers.
I thought you were a deer.
Hopefully not. But no, it's just to be able to step back out in that environment and be like, I'm okay here, and that's what we want to generate and create are these, these 5-day, I don't want to use the word experience, but it is an experience.
It's an adventure.
Thank you. Yeah. You're 100% right. It's an
You're
adventure.
Right. It's in your name.
Right. And, just get these guys out on the adventure and having these conversations, sharing stories, having the conversations. So like, our curriculum is based around a book called Wild at Heart by John Eldridge. He's actually a local author, but big men's book writer, like pretty famous across the U.S. But we use this book. I probably take about 12 paragraphs out of the whole book. So it's, I guess the best way to put it, like that book is not scripture to us with what we do in our curriculum. It is a foundation that creates an opportunity to facilitate questions that get the wheels turning. So that's really what it is about, is like, that's why my coaching background really came in very heavily, was like coaching is really focused around really pointed questions to direct people to where they want to go versus where you're not really telling them where to go. Rule number 1, like any program, is what's said here stays here. But rule number 2 is my favorite rule. We talk only in I's and me's. Like, we do not give advice. We do not tell people what they should be doing. We only speak from experience.
I like that a lot.
This is my absolute favorite rule, because it's like, and we tell guys, like, we will gently shut you down. It's not because we're trying to be mean. It's because we love you and we love everybody else here and we want to respect the environment, right? And so it's my favorite rule, because I'm like, man, what is more beautiful than hearing what other people have been through and what has worked and not worked for them, right? Because what do we begin to learn out of that? That's something I've never tried before. I should give that a shot, man. Like, that sounds like a really good idea, right? And generate those conversations where that stuff starts to come out. So build a foundation, build a platform, offer the opportunity, ask the right questions, and then give them the opportunity to process. That's the intentionality behind the fishing. Let's get you out on the water, you and one other guy and a guide. We're going to get you out there and just float down the river and breathe. guess what? Do you have to fish? Nope. You want to go for a glorified cruise down a river in a rowboat? Go for it, man. Just be.
Yeah.
Just be.
So in keeping with that theme, speaking from experience, how has nature, Colorado, these beautiful mountains and fishing helped you on your journey?
Well, I go back right to that principle of just being able to shut things off, right? I found the most important thing in my journey is to allow myself to feel, right? To really expose these feelings, these things that I've suppressed for so long. And the safest place for me to do it is ankle deep in a river, watching an indicator go from left to right or right to left. It's natural EMDR, right? We've all heard that. Like we're activating those dual hemispheres and remapping that neural pathway. And that's what, to me, that's what being out in nature is. All of it is like that, whether it's the wind sweeping across the grass or whether it's the river moving from left to right or right to left, like whatever, it's all out there. To me, that's just the opportunity to get out there, connect with God, have that conversation, expose these feelings, take a breath. And what's cool about it is I don't have to stuff it. At that point, I've exposed it and it's began its own healing process. Like it's just starting to work through that. And I feel safe doing it. You know, and that's the beauty to me of being out in nature and then introducing that to other guys as well and being like, you can do this too. You know, you can get out of your suburbia and drive an hour or two west or east, whichever direction you need to go. And if that means you just go sit on a rock and kick dirt for 2 hours, then do it.
Yeah.
Let's get out there.
Dude, my favorite thing to do in nature, and we get the opposite of this in the city, is just pay attention to every sound you hear, everything you see, all the shades of colors you can pick up on, all the temperature shifts that you can sense. Like there's so much going on out in nature. And I think when you go from a city environment into a nature environment, it can be understimulating at first because in a city, you know, those sounds are your neighbors yelling at each other, horns honking, sirens going off, who knows what, the dump truck going across the bridge, it's rattling. Then you go in nature and it feels very quiet, but you can pick up on much more subtle things like the stream, the wind through the grass, the birds chirping, the wind howling through the mountains. There's more to see in nature, in my opinion, than in a city.
Oh, absolutely.
And man, I can tell when I go into nature after being in a city. I live right here in downtown Colorado Springs. Man, I'm uncomfortable. I'm itchy. I'm like, oh man, I'm understimulated out here. And I just need to like take a breath and like start identifying things around me. Like, okay, lots of shades of green in this grass. Beautiful. The big pine trees, beautiful, brown, green. I can feel the fresh air. I can now see the mountains. I can now see the blue sky. I can feel the wind. Okay, I feel better now. And then me and my girlfriend always joke, like whenever we're coming down 24 back into the city, there's always some idiot with a Mustang with his muffler cut off
Welcome
that goes
back
zooming
to society,
by us.
man.
And I'm just like, roll the windows up, put jazz music on. I need to keep my zen for a couple days at least.
Yeah, you always get the welcoming party through the little corridor on Highway 24 there, man.
Everyone coming back. But.
You know, I want to say something to your point, you know, being out there, that transition, you know, I really talk to guys like, some of the things that trauma does to us is it builds these facades, right? Like we put up these protective barriers, you know, and in therapy, like, oh, your mask or, you know, whatever you want to call it, the wall, whatever you do. You know, I call them these protective barriers, right? We build these our own internal HESCO walls, right? And it's comfortable to be behind them. But what those are, that's a two-way filter, right? So it filters everything coming in and then it also filters everything going out.
Oh, yeah.
So we show people who we think they want us to be, right? Because if we really showed them who we are, they'd be like, oh, you're a crazy freaking veteran. Like,
yeah, I hate that idea though.
You're a psycho, yeah. But, you know, that's what we do is like we have that natural protective, like we signed up to serve, man. We signed up to help people. I don't think anybody didn't raise their right hand and didn't say like, I swear to serve and protect. Like that's in the heart of each of us. And like, so we even do that on the other side, but so much so to our own detriment. And, you know, so we put up these fake selves. And this is, you know, I'm giving you a little sneak preview of a little bit of what our curriculum is and the program is that we put up these facades and we begin to accept this facade so much that we lose sight of who we truly are. But that's what I love about getting out in nature or getting in this isolated environment with other guys. And it's like, take the facade off, dude. Just be yourself. And even when you get out in nature, you cannot lie to nature. nature will naturally expose you.
Mm-hmm.
It will bring those walls down if you don't. Because when you push nature, nature pushes back. I don't know how many times I've been on the river and I just like get all charged up or triggered or whatever word you want to use, right? Like activated. And you get on the river and then all of a sudden you're there and then now everything's knotted up on your line and like you're dropping things everywhere and you're like, whoa, this is not what I came out for, but who's responsible? Oh shoot, this is my fault.
Yeah. Just take a second.
I need to stop. Like I tried to control too much and nature pushed back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reality of it is like, we just got to be able to get out of our skin a little bit and be willing to expose those sides that we don't normally expose. And then learn that, hey, that's actually okay. I'm actually kind of a cool guy on the other side.
Yeah. We'll wrap up. How does someone get involved with Wild Warrior Adventure? Someone's interested, heard the podcast and wants to take you up on your offer.
Yeah, so they can go to www.wildwarrioradventure.org. You'll see our application process there. So it'll say, I think it says veteran registration. So they can click there, read through some of the material that's there, and then if they're interested, they can fill out that application. We don't really post our program dates. They're a little more unpredictable because it really depends on funding and availability of facilities. So as those come available and people are within, the radius for that program, then, we'll start vetting and filling programs. And especially here in Colorado, like we're looking to do more programs here in a local radius to draw more Colorado-based veterans out. So, but we do them in Texas, Wyoming.
Nice.
So we'll do them other places, but so that would be where they'd start is at wildwarrioradventure.org.
Cool. Well, we always end the show with a story, and I kind of want to hear a specific story if you got one. So has there been someone who's come through the program that really just, it changed them and you saw it and inspired you and you really saw them go from a dark place and leave that program a changed man?
Yeah. Boy, all of them. I don't say that facetiously.
I believe you.
There's so many, but I'll talk about this one guy because I know he's okay with it. I'll just say his first name. The first name is Chris, but I won't go beyond that. But the dude came to our program a mess, and a lot of it was self-inflicted. His marriage was on the rocks. The relationship with his kids were on the rocks. He had older kids too, and Chris came through. He actually came from a background that started out as a pastor's kid, and so he had really kind of rejected the idea of like religion or spirituality and just kind of pushed it away. And he came through his first program up in Casper, and he saw another side of things that he had never seen before. He saw an acceptance that he had never experienced before. He had been pushed out of every other circle and kind of a black sheep even within his own family. And we accepted him with open arms just as he was. And I think it was a shock factor for him at first. He goes, no way these guys are cool with me. Mm-hmm. We're like, yeah, man, because we're just as ugly as you are inside. Like we got some yuckiness too, but that's what's cool about it is let's just get all our yuckiness together and hang out.
Yeah, you're not alone. We're all in this.
Yeah, it was just awesome. So he lives here in Colorado as well. But,
cool.
It's after that program, there was a little bit of a struggle there. Like he had to adjust to that. Who's this new version of himself? And there was just that uncomfortability. And he just continued to grow and continued to take a step forward. It was just enough of an encouragement for him that it gave him the drive to continue to take that next right step each day. And he continued to grow and ended up coming back through another program. We took him down to Texas and went through the program down there with us. And he's just like, I know who I am now. I know who I need to be. And he's actually going to be coming back with me to co-facilitate a trip. He's just continued down that journey of growth. And his relationship with his wife is so solid right now. He's like totally engaged in his kids and grandkids' lives.
Cool.
It was just an incredible success story to see where he came very closed off and actually willing to reject everything we had to say to just being so excited about it. Now he wants to share it with other guys as well.
Man, that's awesome. Super inspirational.
Yeah.
Do you guys mostly fly fish?
Yeah, all we do is fly fishing.
Can you tie a fly?
Oh, I tie all my own flies.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn, should have brought one. I've heard so many people talk about tying flies. It sounds cool.
Yeah, my car, all my fly fishing equipment's in my car, so we can go do a little museum tour. Yeah, but no. So even here at Mount Carmel on April 16th, from 6 to 8 p.m., we'll be doing a fly tying class.
Oh, what? Okay, April 16th.
So yeah, I know shameless pitch there, but just throw it out there. So we'll be doing a class right here at Mount Carmel.
Okay. I'll definitely be there. Hopefully we see some other people there. But yeah, I don't know, man. That just seems so intricate with like, I don't know. I'm sure there's a method, but
it is. I call it vice therapy, because you're just sitting there behind the fly tying vise, and it's just, you have to really get that Zen focus and get in there, and each wrap of this microscopically thin line has to touch, and you're just sitting there just taking your time. It's just, I think it's beautiful. It slows you down. I tell my wife, I call it man crafting.
I like it.
It's my man craft. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
Here, last question I'll ask you. Why do you share your story? What do you hope to share with the public or people who hear your story?
Honestly, it's not my story I want to share. A good buddy of mine, I'm stealing this from him. He says, I go first to give others permission. I share my story because I want other people to know it's okay to share their story. I want them to know also that there might be parts of my story they completely relate with. And then I want them to understand that they can go and share their story, and another person might relate with that. And, we create this giant pyramid scheme of storytelling, and all of a sudden our own community begins to heal because we're sharing our stories with one another, and we're processing with one another, and we're crying with one another, right? It's really has nothing to do with my story. It has to do with giving other people the confidence to share theirs.
Yeah, I get that. We heal through sharing our stories, and it helps and enables others to see their story through a different perspective.
I like 100%.
That. Well, Jonny, thanks for coming on the Veterans Voice podcast. I really enjoyed our time together. Thanks for sharing your story, getting a little bit vulnerable, and I think we'll help others through sharing our stories.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah.